Hey sis, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt alone? Maybe anxious, or maybe like you just wish you could find a good group of women who loved the Lord. Do you want a safe place to talk about all of the real life challenges, life as a working mom, stay-at-home mom, entrepreneur, or simply just raising your kids in today's world? Do you want to grow deeper in your marriage, to find out your true identity and whose you truly are, to know your calling, your purpose, and overall grow intentionally with Jesus? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Gather the Gals, a podcast and ministry created for you, the everyday woman and mom, for all of my gals who want to know their voice matters, their story matters, who want to have a place to feel loved, supported, and encouraged, to find joy in Jesus and not this world, to leave the lies of the enemy behind. Then welcome. Our motto around here is we keep it raw and real, girl, knowing that we have been redeemed. We aren't perfect, but we have a Savior who is. And you, my sweet, sweet friend, are welcome to come as you are. Now let's chat on all the things. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Gather the Gals. I'm your host, Lincoln, and y'all, I have a very, very special guest with me today. She is a wonderful mama of three, and most of y'all probably know her from her very popular website, Her View from Home, or maybe you even know her best-selling book, So God Made a Mother. I have Leslie Means with us as she joins the show today. And I can't wait for y'all to hear all about her story, her life, and even a brand new book coming out soon. So Leslie, take it away. Tell us a little bit about your story and whatever else is on your heart.
Hi. Okay. First of all, I love your accent. I'm always like, we're in the middle of the country. We're just, whatever. We just talk how we chat. Where do you want me to start? Because I can talk. I've lived some life.
That's even better. So I love that so much because I'm the same. People will say stuff and I'm like, I will chit chat and talk and elaborate on all the things. So like, what do you want to know? So
Exactly.
just tell me, you're a mom of three, and how did you get Her View from Home up and going? Like what gave you the idea? What inspired you? And like, why did you think it was important? How has it helped people? Just give me all the good details.
Oh man. Okay. This is still long-winded, but I will, I will tell you.
That is fine.
Okay. I am, I'm a mom of three, as you said. My girls are 16, 14, and we have a little boy named Keithan who's 7. And my husband and I have been married for almost 20 years this New Year's Eve.
That's amazing.
So depending on when this airs, obviously, almost 20 years. My background is I grew up on a small farm in central Nebraska. It's been in our family since 1901. Wow. And in that farmhouse, my great grandpa lived there, and then my grandpa lived there, and my dad lived there, and then I lived there. And now my sister lives there with her family. Wow. So I love this question, and it's interesting to me how the history of our family goes back and how important family is to me. I really realize that whenever I'm chatting about my background. So I was this farm girl from Nebraska who never felt small. And that could be a God thing. That could be mom and dad. But you know what I mean? You could feel like, oh, you're small and you're in your own little world. I always knew that the world was bigger. Maybe that's because of PBS. I don't know. We only had 3 channels. We only watched so much TV. But I always felt like I knew the world was bigger. And as much as I loved my small roots, I felt this calling to do something big. I just always thought I would go and be in TV. I'm an old broadcast journalism girl too. So I couldn't wait actually when I was in my teens to leave small town America. Yeah. And I went to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. That's where I met my husband. And we got married right out of college. And he, also from Nebraska, we moved to Houston, Texas for his dream job to be working for the NBA. So he was like dream gig, Houston, Texas, NBA, like everything. Well, here's his wife,
Oh,
who's this broadcast journalism girl who you couldn't get back in the day. So that was 2005. You couldn't get those big TV gigs in a top
yeah.
market right out of college. So I was driving. I did find my first reporting gig was in Beaumont, Texas, about an hour and a half drive each way.
Yeah.
Because we lived in Houston, driving there. It was amazing. The people were amazing, but hour and a half there, hour and a half back. I was like, what am I doing? And I missed home. And so my husband, being the great guy he is, he was like, let's go back to Nebraska. There was a TV job here for me. And he's like, we'll go back to Nebraska and get your start. So in TV, it's like you work for a couple of years and then you keep moving your way up. That's how it used to
Okay.
be. It
Yeah.
has changed. It has changed a lot.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
so he left this part of the story is so important to me because he left his dream job to come back to Nebraska for me, and he couldn't find a job here. So he was like roguing cornfields, like pulling weeds for
Absolutely.
me.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I always have to give him a little shout out because he's just so
Oh,
supportive.
that's so
And
good.
so I was working in TV, early morning hours. It was at first I was the weekend anchor, and then I was the morning anchor. So I'd go in at like 1 a.m. and
Mhm.
at that time had a couple babies. My girls were like maybe 2 and 6 months
Okay.
when I felt like something like God was calling me to do something else. And actually by this time we had started a local talk show. And my hours at the TV station and my hours were great. They were like 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., which is kind of unheard of in TV.
Yeah.
And on paper, everything looked like it should be great. Like we decided to stay in Nebraska at that point. We had 2 little girls. Life is good. But I felt this like calling to do something else. And I actually got a call on my work phone at work again, like there was still like, phones on a desk.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it was from a woman I had known through the community. I'd interviewed her before. And she said, Leslie, I have something to talk to you about. Give me a call when you're done with the show. And I called her. Before I called her, I truly thought, what if she has a job for me? What if there's something else I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
And I called her that day and she had a job for me
Wow.
at the local Chamber of Commerce. And
Oh.
so I took it. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, how is God? Like, God, what in the world? Like, why did I do this? And I took it and I took the leap and I started working for the Chamber of Commerce. And it was the business skills that I needed. And that is actually when I started Her View from Home almost 13 years ago,
Oh,
because it was that combination of TV and business skills that I really needed that started it. And there's so many stories with Her View and how that got going, but I just find it so interesting how God orchestrates every little moment for where it needs to be.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's so funny when you said that you got a random call, and that's immediately what came to mind. It's like, isn't it so amazing how God opens doors and how you felt before, like you feel this like tug of like him calling you into something different. But I feel like so oftentimes, and we talk a lot about this on the show, because as a mom, well, even if you take a step back and like for me, so I'm a pediatric nurse. And when I went into nursing school, I had all the intentions of continuing and getting my nurse practitioner, getting my doctorate and continuing up the ladder. And to me, when I look back now, I feel like it was more for money or title or things like that. But then you become a mom. And I had always said, oh, I'll never be a stay-at-home mom. Like I can't do it, but they change you and God tugs on your heart and he opens doors. And it was like crazy stuff. Like when I had my first, I was like, okay, I can't be working, these 16-hour shifts, missing their bath time, putting them to bed, getting up and, you miss all this stuff, T-ball games, Christmases, like, you're working weekends, holidays, nights. And I was like, I can't do this. And it's like on maternity leave, there was a job at my same pediatric hospital that I swear like the Lord just opened up. It was part-time. It's what I needed. I took it. Then I had my second son and I was like, I can't do even part-time now with my husband's schedule,
Right.
And so then again, on maternity leave, there was a PRN job just waiting. And it was like, and those are unheard of. Everybody wants that as a nurse. So I took it and it's like, he opens doors. And even just with this podcast, I said forever, I felt that tug of, there needs to be a relatable podcast where I bring on everybody from,
Mhm.
just a mom wanting to share her testimony or a story, or like, you with wanting to get the word out about your book. I don't care who you are, where you're
Yep.
from, everybody, I believe they have a story and God has a purpose for your voice in that story. Hey guys, if you are liking this episode right now, would you do me a huge favor? Would you go and subscribe to our channel, leave us a quick 5-star review, and if you want to leave a sweet note, we love that too. And please just share this with another mom who needs a little bit of encouragement. We are so thankful for all of your love and support here at Gather the Gals. Hey, have you ever heard of Minnow? If you are like me, you are tired of all the shows on TV these days that say that they are for kids. Minnow gives you a YouTube, Netflix-like account and app, but it's all clean content and it's faith-based and teaches your kids about Jesus. Find my link in the show notes to get a free week trial. And, just relatable content. And I'm like, I had this vision for so long, but I'm like, I am a nurse. I have no idea what to do, how to get started. And one day after many years, I'm like, okay, here I am pregnant with my little girl, and she's going to need a community like this. And so you do it. He opens the door and you look back and you're just like, gosh, like, thank you, Lord, and even just prayers that you may have been praying for so long, and you're in this waiting season and you're like, why is he not answering this? And then you look back and you're like, now I know why.
Oh, he's totally answering. I know.
Right. Yes. You're like,
dang it.
Yes, absolutely. It's like, man, was he working in that silent season,
Always.
And it may be totally different from something that you expected or were hoping for, but you're like, oh, but it's so much better,
Yep.
And so I love that so much. Okay. So tell me about your book. So your first book was, So God Made a Mom, right? A mother.
So God Made a Mother. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So her view is, it started actually with like stories from 10 of my friends.
Okay. Yeah.
I wanted to, and I love how you say that, like calling that the everyone has a story has always been our tug really big time of letting everyone in and yet still having a place for faith was very important. Absolutely. Because especially now in this world, I feel like you're either one or the other. And I've always been like, can't we just give space for people to just be where they are, whatever, however they are.
Yes.
And so that's always been my tug. And actually, the first 10 writers or so is kind of how the site was formed, because we had a woman talking about some grief, and there was a woman talking about her faith and parenting, and there was moms with teens and moms with young kids. And that's just kind of how it started. So that's how all these, there's lots of backstories, how God orchestrated every moment of this website, because we didn't have any money to get it started, and he just kept showing up to get it going.
Absolutely.
So now the writers, they find us, and we have a community. And the writers in the book are actually women who have also written for Her View from Home. So So God Made a Mother, I think we had over 500 submissions for that, and you have to whittle it down to about 100, which is really difficult. And it was actually the same for So God Made a Grandma. So these are women who have written for Her View from Home before, and they are all new stories in the book, and they are in depth and beautiful and hard and relatable. And even if you aren't a grandma, which I love so much about motherhood, I feel like even if you aren't in that space that mother is talking about, you can still relate back to it because you have kids of your own, and so you can see yourself in that moment. And
absolutely.
And that really is what the grandma book is all about too.
Well, it's so beautiful because, like you said, you may not be a grandma yet, but you learn from your grandma and your mom, and how you want to do things the same and you want to do things different. And so even just, my kids are so little right now, but looking forward to that day one day, it's like there's things that I'm going to take from, my mom, from my husband's mom, and then things I want to do differently. And I think that's what's so cool, and how the world just evolves and changes every day in general. So tell me about your grandma. How is she? And how did she influence you? Or
both of my grandmas died when I was pretty young, actually. I was in junior high when my dad's mom passed away, and I was in early college when my mom's mom passed away.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
so what is interesting to me and what I love so much about this book, for me, it's really kind of because I write a piece in each section and then I lead the reader through. And so there's,
Okay.
between 6 and 10-ish stories per chapter.
Yeah.
And it like it's broken down into themes. So God made a
Yeah.
grandma beautiful, so God made a grandma strong, all
Okay,
those
cool.
those
Yeah.
words too. And so for me, I write a lot about my mother and how
Yeah.
she is a grandma to my children. And so a lot of
Yes.
these writers are coming from the perspective of writing about their mothers, but then we have some
Yeah.
in here who are also writing about their grandmothers and their
Mm.
grandmothers, the stories. I mean, I
Mm.
say it so, like, I love our mother book. Our mother book is incredible.
Yeah.
Grandma
Yeah.
takes it like, sometimes like take two is like, oh, is the
Absolutely.
second just as
Yes.
good? I'm like,
Yes.
dare I say it's even
Oh.
more, it's just so in depth because these
Yes.
stories are like stories passed down from generation to generation
Yes.
of women.
Yeah.
And it's very diverse. There
Yeah.
is one piece talking about her grandmother during the Holocaust and sights she
Mm.
saw and sounds and smells she remembers.
Wow.
There is some from a grandmother sending her child to the United States to get them out of Cuba. I mean, there's just these like
Mm.
beautiful,
Wow.
rich pieces. There's also pieces in here where grandmas are sharing their recipes. Like
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so what I love so much, and you hit it on the head too, because that's what you said your podcast is about. The real life, raw, true,
Yeah.
everyday stories that
Every
we
day.
all
Yeah.
share is
Yeah.
exactly what you're going to get in the book, is exactly what you get
Yep.
on the website, because
Yep.
I just feel like we are all connected and we
Yeah.
are all way more alike than the world tries to tell us.
Yes.
Like we all
Absolutely.
just want to be the best version of ourselves that we can be
Yeah.
and be the best mom and wife and grandma and friend. And I feel like
Mm.
that's God's calling for me to help people share those
Yeah.
stories. And so
Yeah.
we
And
do
like,
that. Yeah.
and with wanting to be that best version of ourselves, it's
Mhm.
like the world tells you you can do it all alone. You can do everything. But it's like, no, that's not how God created
Right.
us to be the best version of ourselves. We need our people. We need our community.
Yep.
And this world has divided us, and
Yep.
that is what I preach and I try to on the podcast is like I don't have, so for example, some of my good friends lost their 3-month-old baby. I don't have that experience. But
Mm-hmm.
like for her to come on and share her story,
Yep.
she can hit the nail on the head on to talking to the moms out there who are going through grief of losing a child. I don't
Yep.
have that experience. So it's like there's things out there that like we haven't walked through, but like
Yep.
you better believe other people have. And so
Yep.
I love that, how everything it's needed. Like every story I hear so often that people feel dismissed because they don't feel like their testimony is good enough or big enough. And I'm like, oh, but if you only knew that it
Right.
doesn't matter if you share it and you save one person versus a million, like,
Yep.
and
Yep.
we live in this social media world where it's like, oh, we don't
Ugh.
have the amount of followers. We don't. And I'm like, but if you're putting out content that makes your heart feel good
Yep.
and it helps one person,
Yep.
like that is what it's about,
Yep.
and so I love that. I love that, just the diversity of your books and everything. My grandma is so special to me. So I love that,
You have your grandma
she's,
still?
so I don't, I have
Okay.
one. So I
You have
have
one
one of
grandma.
my grandmas. My dad's mom is still alive.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's grandma and or my mom's mom and dad, we called them mom and pop.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost Pop when I was a junior in high school. And it's funny because my mom is one of five and my dad is one of five. My mom has a twin. And so her sister and brother, we were all 2 weeks apart. So me and two cousins
Wow.
graduated together. And yeah, we have a huge family. There's
I
like
love it.
so many cousins, all things. Yes. And so we went to school together. And so Pop was like trying to hang on until we graduated. And it was like literally like, just a few months shy of it. And, but I was like his only girl. There was a few that were older than me, but we had a bunch of boys around my age.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and him are like this. Like
Yeah.
I love Pop. And, but then my grandma, we called her mom. Everybody called her mom. We lived in a
Mhm.
real small town, one stoplight. And I mean,
Where are
she
you
was
from?
known. So I'm in Texas, but I'm
You're in
from
Texas.
I'm from Grandview. It's a small little town close to Fort Worth.
Okay,
But,
sure.
yes, yeah. So,
So you knew the Beaumont, the Houston.
absolutely.
You're like,
Absolutely. I got you. Yes, absolutely.
I get it.
And so, what I say about mom is like she introduced herself. Like to anybody who came into church, you knew if mom had greeted you because you'd have a big old red lipstick kiss on your cheek.
I love it.
And she would introduce as I'm mom, even if she'd never met you. And everybody, yeah, that's her name was Patsy, but she would go by mom. And she just had this like joy about her that was just like, you knew her joy came from Jesus.
Yep.
And she loved everybody. And she would go to the cafe with her girls, and then my pop would go to the cafe with his guys, and they would drink coffee every morning. And they just did laugh with each other, with their community, you know?
Yep.
And it just, we're always like, oh, it just seems so simple back then. But I'm like, if you think about now, you know, we say the bigger the fence, the better. Like we don't want people in our area, in our bubble or whatever. And it's like, no, like if you need, you know, if you're cooking gingerbread cookies and you need an egg, go next door. Like you don't got to go to Target or whatever, you know, it's just a different way of living. And
Yep.
it's like, man, if we could just get back to that community and that helping you one another and that voicing everybody's stories and concerns and struggles and sharing and doing life, it just makes a huge difference, you know?
I feel like, and I think that we're getting there. I feel like
Yeah.
the world is really trying to get back to that space. It's
Yeah.
so interesting to be almost 43 because
Yeah.
I always say we're the Oregon Trail generation because we grew up
Yeah.
without social media. And then all of a sudden, right after college, I have social media and it's amazing.
Right.
It's an amazing tool. I'm so grateful for what I've been able to have because of Facebook and
Sure.
Instagram and all of
Yeah.
it. Look
Yeah.
at this. Like I'm on my
I
phone
know.
chatting with you.
I
It's
know.
amazing.
Yes.
But it is
Yes.
also so interesting to know a whole different life. And I
Yeah.
crave that. I miss that sometimes.
Yeah.
I loved my childhood. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had so
Yeah.
much love and support, which I
Yes.
now realize is even more important. And I
Yeah.
really do crave that simplicity. And I have been trying to get back to that in my life too. Boundaries. I try to have my
Yeah.
phone off by, you know,
Yeah.
I leave it in
Yeah.
my office, which frustrates my husband because he's like,
Yes.
what if people need to get a hold of you? I'm like,
Right.
well, too
Right.
bad. I'm
Yeah.
not. Like,
Yeah.
it's
I'm
gone.
out here. Yeah.
But it's so interesting because I do feel like we miss that simplicity of neighbors
Yeah.
coming down, you know, like in our gravel road, neighbors
Yes.
coming down into
Oh,
our house. My dad would like push aside bills on the table and invite them
yes.
in for a glass of tea.
Yes.
Like we used
Right.
to do that all the time.
Yeah.
And we also then were able to sit with each other and listen to other people's stories.
Yes.
And even if it wasn't your story or you couldn't understand it, you could sit with them
Yeah.
for a minute.
Yes.
And I hope, I pray, I think we're trying to get back to that a little bit. I know that's what you and I
Yeah.
are both trying to do is just be
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
space where you can listen to somebody else. And
Yeah.
even if you will never understand their perspective, at least you can say, hey, I'm here for you, or I'm
Yes.
listening to you. And
Yeah.
I love how you said too that no one will ever be able to know just by telling their one story of who you are reaching. We have so many stories like that on Her View and in the book. One in particular, there was a story that came, I don't know if you know this story. A woman wrote us in the summer of 2016. Actually, this is when Her View was like, I thought I was going to shut it down. Have I told you this?
Really?
Or do you know this story?
I
No, you
don't
may
know.
not.
I don't know.
Okay.
Let me
So
see.
summer of 2016, it was June of 2016. And like the website, we didn't have a whole lot of money coming in. And then I found out that we were expecting our third baby. So our little dude was expecting. And
Yes.
so I knew, and we refinanced our house that month.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think we have like one more month to see if Hervey from Home is going to bring in income, how it's going to do. And if not, I'm going to go back and get a job somewhere, you know. And I had many a chats with God about this. And during that time, I received an email from a woman who said, and Her View was pretty small then. I think we had like 20,000 Facebook followers, and you know now we're like 1.7 million or something. she had said, Leslie, I've been praying about it, and I want to share my friend's story. I've been praying about a place to do that, and I think Her View from Home is the place. And her story was actually her friend had died by suicide 4 months after her baby was born. So she was suffering from postpartum depression, and she just felt like she wanted to share the story on Her View. And of course, we were honored to share it. Of course, we would share it. And that piece completely, just everyone, so many people on the internet found it, read it. And then we received an email from a woman not long after we had published that piece that said, thank you for sharing that story. It saved my life. And that was not long after I'd had that conversation. I just feel emotional thinking about it.
Sure.
Was when I had that conversation with God. I was like, I don't know if you want me to continue this. So if you do, like, please, like, just help me and I'll do it. And the website has never been the same since that piece was published and that whole summer, fall moment. And I think of that all the time. I'm like, we just never know the amount of people out there who are reading our words, because we're brave enough to share it. The people on your podcast, the writers in the book and on the website, they're so brave to share their story. And in doing so, they're helping other women not feel alone. And even one person, it's huge. It's so important. And you don't have to have a social media following to do that. You can go get your neighbor and invite her in for a casserole and a cup of coffee and just listen to her story, and that you could make a huge ripple that way.
Gosh,
So anyway.
I love that. That's amazing, and how you said you were having these conversations with God, and then it's like, boom, it's like a door,
Yep.
and it's so, it brings this story to my heart. And really, this was just the other day, probably a couple of weeks ago. I was praying for, there's a lot with the election and everything. There's a whole lot of, debate around the topic of abortion and things like that.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I could sit here and talk abortion or politics or whatever, but is that going to change people's hearts or views in the best way or whatever? Probably not. Right. And so it's like, do I post and just say, hey, if you have ever had an abortion, or have you ever thought about it, or anything like that? And I was sitting here on one morning taking my oldest to school, and I'm like, God, would you send me somebody? Would you figure out how do I navigate this topic? And I tell you what, it wasn't 20 minutes later, and I got an email, and it was like some random person found our website, and I guess it just emailed me and was like, hey, like, I've had this experience where had an abortion, and now I've like turned my life around, and now I try to help women who are in that moment or that feeling of, do I get one, do I not? And she runs a ministry, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I found her on Instagram. I sent her a message, and I'm like, you will not believe this. 20 minutes ago, I prayed for you to find me. And it was just, I mean, we were both like in tears. I mean, it was just one of those things, because I have those same conversations of like, do I shut this down? Because as a mom of 3, it is a lot of work, right? Like, I right now, I have, thankfully my mom's here, but normally I'm like, okay, my daughter's asleep. Let's hurry. Let's do the podcast. My middle, he's 4. I'm like, shh, be quiet. It's time away from them. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, God, you called me to this. I'm praying it's kingdom work. Like, I'm praying it reaches your people. I don't care about the money or anything tied to it, attached to it. I'm doing this for you. And when you tell me to shut it down, I'll shut it down. And there are so many conversations where I'll even tell my husband, I'm done. I'll close my laptop, and he's like, open it back up. He's like you said, he is my biggest supporter. And I'm like, from day one, he was like my only listen, my only comment, only follower. And I'm like, I mean, they're just the best, right?
Right.
And he's like, you're not done. It's okay. Everybody has bad days, or what, and it's just, you just go back to God. What is it that you're calling me, and what do you want me to do? There may be so much that I want to do. And there's things where I'm like, because I'm the type of person, I get real excited, and I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's start this or whatever. And I'm like, but God, is that the road that I'm supposed to be on right now? And it can look different next year. It can look different in 10 years, and I struggle
I love
with
that though,
because
I've heard so many people, or so, over the almost 13 years now that her view's been out, which just seems I'm
Yeah.
such a dinosaur in the
Oh,
world of it's like
no.
how can it feel old and yet it's still so young? Like,
Yeah,
and yet
absolutely.
the internet, you
Yeah.
guys,
Oh,
the internet has changed so much in
yeah,
13 years. It's
man.
very hard to keep up with.
Oh man,
Very hard.
I
So
bet.
hard. But
Yes.
I love the maybe it's not the right time wherever you are. Because so many people have been like, well,
Yeah.
how did you pursue this dream? Or how did you know God
Yeah.
was calling you to it? When it's like, that one's
Yeah.
really hard for me because I feel like that
Yeah.
feeling, that like gut, that
Yes.
like nudge that
Absolutely.
God does. That's
Yes.
hard to
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah.
But I do really believe that even if it's not happening right now for you,
Yeah.
whatever it is, maybe it's just
Yes.
not your season and there could be a
Yes.
new time for that. I love
Yeah.
that about our world now. I don't feel like there has to be such a timeline on things.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
am, again, almost 43, and I feel like I'm just getting started. Like there's so many
Yes.
things that I still want to do. And
Right.
sometimes you just can't do that when your kids are so little. I mean, my
Yes.
kids now 16, 14, and 7. We're very busy, but I don't have to like make sure they're brushing their, well, I have to kind of with the
Yes.
7-year-old,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
teens are so independent, and
Sure.
it
Sure.
gives your brain more space to think. I mean, it's exhausting and scary in some ways, but it's different than having a little one, like you said, around. And so I don't know. I love that I feel like there's no timeline for
Yeah.
that stuff and that God
Yes.
is going to use you in every season of your life, you know?
Right, right, yeah. And that I think you said that so good of just like how every season has obviously its purposes, right? And I mean, I remember in high school I have journals of some sort of like one God wanting me to start some sort of women's ministry. And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to write it down. I love to journal. And I would try to start Bible studies in the school or at my church or things like that. And really try to start little other businesses here and there. And it was just never the right time, never worked, never, wasn't passionate about it. But I tell you what, the moment I found out I was pregnant with a little girl, and so my husband's in law enforcement,
Yeah.
and so his career is like I said, he's gone for a full week this week. He's
Yep.
just in and out, all the things. And so with the world that we do know, that a lot of people don't know behind the scenes law enforcement stuff, we were nervous to bring a little girl into this world, and boys too. But it's just
Yep.
man.
Yep.
And we had 2 boys, and I'm like, and we always wanted a big family.
Mhm.
But I was like, God, if you're gonna give me a girl, well, it's funny. I did tell him. I said I want to see some of my grandma in her, and there is things that she does that
That
I
funny?
swear to you, I'm like, oh my gosh, he answered that
Uh-huh.
prayer. I
Uh-huh.
mean, just the sweetest little things. And so, but he did. He gave us a girl, and that moment, it's like you said, that nudge. I just knew I've got, and I did. I started when I was probably 7 months pregnant with her, maybe 6 or 7 months pregnant with her. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And I grabbed my best friend and I was like, okay, help me get started.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's the nudge that I needed, was like, she's going to need a community, because that's kind of what we do is we're trying to get women back together in your living room. It
Yep.
doesn't matter what your house looks like. It doesn't matter if you're serving food or if you're not. You can make a pot of coffee, but
Yep.
it's I've written 2 different, like a devotional for busy moms and then a
Yep.
marriage guide. I'm so big on marriage. I married my
Yep.
high school sweetheart.
Yep.
And it's getting people back together to do life with. And so we're trying to just get these little gather groups in people's living rooms,
Yep.
and doing life together, doing Bible studies. And I'm like, I need that now, because I felt so alone in postpartum,
Mhm.
and it was just, I just remember my babies were colicky. They had eczema, they had all these things, and I didn't know where to turn. And so I would go to Facebook groups,
Yep.
and I'm like, okay, give me your advice on this. I don't know who you are or your,
Yep.
beliefs or anything, but give me your advice. And I mean, my husband has this picture, and I'm just sitting in our room at 3 a.m., just like looking up at the wall. And I was just saying, God, like, I need a community like this. And he said, if you can't find it, then you're going to have to create it. And that was with my son. And again, I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't do that. And again, that when I had my girl, knew I was pregnant with her, I'm like, she's
You
going to
just
need
knew.
this. And I knew. And you do it. You just say, okay, if this is from you, and if it is from him, he's going to do it. He's going to provide. He's going to make the way.
Yep.
And it may not be as pretty as you thought, or
Yep.
it's
going to be messy.
It's going to be messy. And the beauty is that you learn, and it's like you're driving on this beautiful road to go to Florida. We went to Florida this summer, and it's like you're so excited to get to the beach. But if you miss the beauty along the way and how you're gonna see things and grow from it, you're missing the whole point, you know.
I know, and I hate that. I hate that, because you always see the signs in Hobby Lobby when you have to go through the dirt to see the roses or whatever.
And you're like, I don't want to.
It's so true. It is so true. It gives you such a different perspective too. And I ask that with God all the time, because I'm like, I'm constantly like, please just take this from my shoulders, because why? This is what you said you wanted me to do. So then just take it. Like, do it. Some interesting conversations. But I'm always like, and then he shows up. Then he does something else to make it go. And the book did so, and now we have another book, and it's all those things. And my struggle now, not struggle, is the internet is so awful, and all of us who have survived the last 5 years, but especially like the last one, it's like, oh my gosh, can we just stop yelling at each other? I feel like those of us who can hold on in this industry, we're needed, and it's important. And I think we're going to get to another side of whatever that other side is. But I feel a shift coming where I think we're getting better at maybe realizing that we don't need all of this filters and fakeness. And I pray that that's coming soon.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I think that's so good. Oh my goodness. Well, tell me about when your book's coming out.
Okay. So it comes out March 4th. Okay. Right after my little dude's birthday.
I'm like, really?
So March 4th. And so it will be a big Mother's Day track again too. Amazing. So it's plenty of time to get it into all of the stores, and so people can purchase the gifts for Mother's Day. So we also say too, make sure you write your own story in the first couple pages, just write a little note or something to whoever you're giving it to, because I don't know, I think it's important to share your story as well.
Absolutely. I love notes. Me and my husband, that's one of our things we've always done, is we'll just little notes around each. It's just that personalized touch. So, well, it's been so good to talk to you. Do you have anything else that you would like to share, or
no? I don't know. Obviously, you just asked me a question and I got it, but
I know.
This was fun. This was good. I love what you're doing. It's so important to. Everybody has an important story to share, no matter who they are. So I'm so glad you get that too.
Yes. Thank you. It's been so good. It's like you said, the internet and social media and everything can just be so negative and everything, but there's such a beauty to it. Like you said too, if you you look at the positives of just how many wonderful people that I've been able to meet and across country and things, it's so good. And so it's like, if we're using it for God's glory and we're the ones out there that's cheering others on doing the same, then I think it's so worth it. And so I love it. I love just reading everything that you do, and I can't wait for your book to come out. And you're just such a light. Yes, I love it so much.
Thanks for gathering with me today. I hope you leave feeling a little more loved, a little closer to Jesus, and overall know that you matter. Life can be hard, but when we gather together, it makes it a little more sweet. I would love for you to subscribe to the podcast and find me on social media. We'll chat soon, sis.